Hi, my name is Steve Poole. I'm a Professor of History and Heritage at the University of the West of England in Bristol. And I'm also the Associate Historian with Splash and Ripple, this company we see displayed behind us here, purveyors of fine experiences and architects of extraordinary adventures. A name like that, you just want to work with them, okay? So I want to just say a few things about the digital world in which we reside before we get started here. This is becoming horrible. This is like a waking nightmare, isn't it? You know, the iPhone. Oh, what a clever thing, and how incredibly frustrating and annoying they can be. Here I am on my digital, beautiful heritage landscape. Here's my phone. Oh, there's no signal. Oh, that's a shame. Or look at this beautiful landscape. No, let's look at it through here. No, don't. You know, I mean, well, they're clever things, but I think we need to sort of rethink a little bit about how we engage with them. A couple of things just to think about here. You probably know this already, right? But this is why digital matters. This is why mobile matters to us. There are now more mobile internet devices in the world than there are people. Someone's got two, obviously. But you know, these are things we need to remember. And it's been calculated reliably. I'm borrowing some of these slides from Andrew Lewis at the Victoria and Albert Museum, by the way, if any of you have seen them before, who is completely brilliant. And I'm just borrowing a few of these sort of early slides just for context. But the Gartner prediction there, 26 billion devices will be connected to the Internet of Things by 2020. The Internet of Things, that is, using the Internet to make dull objects live, things we can do to animate stuff. Andrew is also very keen on getting us to rethink objects. This is a brick, right? We know it's a brick. So if I say to you, here's a brick, what do you do with it? You build a bloody wall or something. But actually, if we sort of rethink brick, then we might do, like, what is a brick, actually? What does it do? What are its properties? What are its characteristics? Because this is the way we might want to start thinking about mobile. So we've listed a number of brick-like characteristics there, and then we start rethinking what a brick can do, what it is, what it's for, what we might play with it, you know, in what ways we might play with it. Why don't we do the same thing with this? It's a phone. I know it's a phone. That's for calling people on, isn't it? No, but I can also get my email. Yeah. All right. But what else is it? What else is it? It's light. It can locate you. It can play sound. It can take photographs. It can take film. It can show film. It can, like, what is it? It's just a funny little black plastic box that can do a crazy amount of things. It's a computer in your pocket. So just rethinking some of these things gets us into a different sort of headspace, I think. I was at a very interesting conference in Cambridge, which Andrew was at as well, which is where I managed to steal his slides, with an organisation called CRASH, Cambridge University, a conference called Making Cultural Heritage Mobile. What we did was we spent 2 days. The first day was a workshop day, and we worked with museum curators in Cambridge who were challenged about their content, their delivery, their visitor expectations, and the digital world. How can we work with this? So we spent a day working with them on various solutions, and then we had a formal conference to follow. And a number of interesting things came up, and the most important message I took away was this top one here. Mobile is a behavior, it is not a technology. And the biggest example of that is Conkers. Conkers is a fantastically non-technological game. It is extremely mobile. You can play it anywhere. You play it on the move, you put your Conker in your pocket, you travel around with it. It's fantastic. It does everything mobile does, but it doesn't need one of these. Do you always need one of these to do mobile at a heritage site? Interesting question. So just think about that. Most common thing people say who run heritage sites, because if they haven't got an app, we go to see them and they say, we need an app. And you go, why? And they go, well, because everyone's got an app. What do you want the app to do? Bring loads of people in. And somehow the right question's not being asked, is it? The right question is, what do you want people to think? What do you want people to know? What do you want people to feel when they visit your place? And then we can start talking around solutions. They might be digital. They might be mobile. They might not. but we've got to think in terms of what we want to do before we do anything else. And the final thing, keep it simple. Don't make it complicated. Some people, believe it or not, still can't operate these. I even got young people at my university, some of my savvy students still don't, I didn't come to do history to fiddle about with technology. Show me an archive. So that not everybody understands, and some people are still alienated by technology. So how can we use digital in ways that helps people to engage with it who are actually somewhat challenged by it? So my project, Ghosts in the Garden. Ghosts in the Garden is a digital project. It's funded by the Arts and Humanities Research Council through its Southwestern Creative Industries Creative Economy Hub. It's called REACT. And what it does is it gives grants out to collaborative enterprises between university academics and people in the creative industries, creative people. So we take non-creative people like me, who are kind of academic and scholarly, and then we take creative people and we go, what if these two people got together? What would they make? What would it be like? Let's bring in a heritage manager and see what happens when they have to follow an agenda, a three-way triangle there. Well, triangles are three-way. How can we, what would happen? So I got a grant because I applied to do a project. And I got a grant, and this is the thing I made. It's called Ghosts in the Garden. Ghosts in the Garden is located, or was located when we made it, at this place. This is the Holborn Museum in Bath. Anyone know it? In the Great Pulteney Street, Holborn Museum. Originally built as the entrance building to an 18th century pleasure garden. So this was like Vauxhall Gardens in London, but this was Bath's version. It was built in 1795. The only thing that really survives from that time is this building, the entrance building, the hotel for the pleasure garden. And it's a popular museum, it's a fantastic museum, but behind it there's now a municipal park called Sydney Gardens. It was an 18th century pleasure ground, now it's a municipal park. And the director of the museum, Zar Sturgis, said to me, Steve, could we do something to get people out of the museum into the park, but without them just thinking it's a park? Because I want them to know the relationship between the building and its environment, the 18th century pleasure garden. What can we do? I think I need an app. I knew he was going to say that. And I said, so why do you think you need an app? So we went through various options, and then we thought, well, you kind of might need a sort of an app. But let's see where we go with this. So what have we got in Sydney Gardens? What survives? Well, some views. I said there's nothing much survives. At the top end of the garden, there's this thing called the loggia, which was a sort of a gazebo built in the 18th century from which to look at the surrounding hills and snaking crescents of Bath's beautiful skyline. So we've got one or two things to work with. We've also got some glorious 18th century caricatures and paintings, prints. Here's one produced by John Nixon in 1801 of Sydney Gardens. Here's another one by Nixon. This one's showing that they had swings there. People liked to swing in the 18th century. They swung for health, actually. Did you know you could cure pulmonary problems by swinging a lot every day and then taking your pulse? Apparently, anyway, somebody used to think this. So they swung for pleasure and they swung for health. And so we know a little bit about what it might have once looked like. We also have contemporary maps. Contemporary maps can show us the layout of the 18th century pleasure gardens. We might want to work with that a bit. Here's another one, nice close-up one. That side there, that pink thing with kind of fallopian tubes coming out of it, that's the hotel, that's the museum with its supper boxes as they were snaking out from it, and the rest of the garden you can see there. Fantastic maze, number of other features, bowling greens, a place for setting off fireworks, so on and so on and so on. So we came up with this, right, what are we going to do? How are we going to work? Because we're interested in how we're going to work. Creative industries, academic historian, heritage partner. Let's make something we couldn't have otherwise made. How shall we work? So we thought, right, we're going to work like this. We're not going to make a digitized guidebook. We're not going to make a trail. We're not having an audio trail or a digital trail. We're not interested in augmented reality. Hey, no dinosaurs. We just don't, it's nothing wrong with that, but we don't want to do it. We want to do something new. So we said to them, your guidebook, guidebooks are great. So books are nice. I like books. Nothing wrong with books. Keep your guidebook. We'll make something different. So it's not a guidebook. Neither is it something you download onto your phone or onto your iPad and carry around with you. Because we just didn't want people messing about with phones and iPads when they're supposed to be exploring a space. We want them to enjoy the space. So that was out as well. Part of not wanting to work with the guidebook meant I'm a historian. I want to do new research. I want to find new things to say about this site. So I'm going to do fresh research, and I do history from below, which means I'm interested in ordinary people like you and me. I'm not interested in kings, military leaders. I'm not interested in World War I. I'm the only person in England who's not interested in World War I, but I can live with it. I'm not interested. I'm interested in the lives of ordinary people doing ordinary things every day, and I think those things are very interesting. But most guidebooks don't go there, particularly in the sort of heritage industry where they tend to be a bit obsessed with lords and ladies, don't they, and kings and queens. So there would be fresh, new research. We would be adding. And I've said it sort of sounds very kind of highfalutin. We will tackle the divide between historical research and the imagination. But there's always a bit of a playoff between heritage people who want to be imaginative or creative people who want to be very imaginative and playful, and historians who just want to go, no, I'm afraid that contravenes the facts. And I was interested in how we can work together in a sort of playful way to make something that works. So this would be serious play. Then to make it a bit more exciting, we thought, let's turn this into a sort of a game. I want to engage audiences in the gardens. I don't want to create something where they know they're going there to get information. That kind of thing where you turn your phone on and it goes bing, and it goes, oh, you are now standing on the site of the original maze. The maze was built by this time the kids are asleep or looking for a dinosaur somewhere, and we're all a bit kind of jaded, and we've got it in the guidebook anyway. So we thought, let's have a game. Adults need to play. Kids know how to play. They can help to teach the adults. So let's have a game, and we'll make some sort of game. What sort of game will it be? We weren't sure. We didn't want people plugged into headphones because we wanted the sounds of the real environment to be part of the experience. So if there's a bit of traffic noise, or if there's people playing in the park, that's part of it. That's where the past and the present actually kind of meet, collide, confront one another. It's rather interesting, I think. So let's not pretend it's not there. We're not reconstructing. So there'd be sound, but the sound will be available to everybody taking part. Okay, so research. I have to do research. What sort of things can I use to try to reconstruct this place? Some original guidebooks turn up in the archive, guidebooks to the gardens. Some newspaper articles about fantastic galas with fireworks and performers. A lovely little map turned up of what the maze apparently used to look like, how to get to the centre of this now gone maze. A ruined castle they had. They built it as a ruin in the gardens, a romantic ruin, at top right-hand corner. A hermit's cottage, bottom right-hand. An old watermill, it was mechanical watermill, top left, so on. Music. They had music in the gardens, of course they did. So we managed to get some money together to send someone to the British Library to retrieve manuscripts of music that was written for Sydney Gardens and has never been performed since and has never been recorded. Amazing. He came back with it, we said, here it is. So we recorded it, and it's part of the soundscape. I like that sort of thing. And then we've got the people who populate the park. These are the people I wanted to work with most. Who are the ordinary people in the park? And the museum director said to me, Steve, this is rather exciting because you do know, don't you, that Jane walked in these gardens. And I said, Jane, Zara, I have no idea who you mean. He said, oh, come, I think you know I mean Jane Austen. I said, well, she's not in it. And he went, we must have Jane. People love Jane. I said, no, but she's not in it. We're going to have ordinary people. This is new. We're going to have new people. I said, we're going to have pickpockets. I bet there are pickpockets. I'm going to find pickpockets. So I went off to the county record office in Taunton, dug around in the quarter session papers, and out comes a pickpocket called George Robbins, who was picking pockets on the night of the gala, if you can just read that. So he's in it. Jane's not, George Robbins is. This is history from below. then we've got to make our game. We've got to make our game work in some respect. Here's a plan, an old plan of the gardens showing some of the original features. So we can work with that, and then we can make a new one. And we decided our game was going to be a GPS-powered game experience with zones that you walk into and things start to happen through GPS. So we've got to build our zones onto the old map. There they are, starting to go in. Then we've got to walk around the gardens, do the field work. Here's the director of the gardens hanging out outside the Edwardian toilets. A lovely feature with the creative director of Splash and Ripple, Rosie Pobright, and one of our script writers, David Varela, making notes as we walk around. And here's Rosie trying to explain to Zar and myself what a game mechanic looks like. So I was going, well, game, what is this game? How does this game work? And she said, well, it's a choose-your-own-adventure game, Steve. You must remember this. When you were a kid, they gave you books. It said, if you think Jimmy's got the diamonds at the ruined castle, go to page 12. If you think Sarah has secreted them somewhere about her person, go to page 25. You know those? And you make your own adventure by making choices. So she said, why don't we do that in the gardens without the book? So the GPS will take us from place to place, and we'll make choices, and we'll go to different places using a map. I was going, this is amazing, but I still don't get it. So this is an attempt to draw the game mechanic for a choose-your-own-adventure game in the park. And then because this was about process, what we were trying to do is develop a new way of making something creative, something unusual. So we had a game which we played with some storytellers and some other creative types and some actors and scriptwriters, and we all mucked in together with the museum people, and we created a game where you have to pick up cards with locations in the park, situations and characters. I've got the characters because I'd researched them. The situations are obviously there on the map, or the locations are, and the situations might be falls in love or trips over. And then pick up one of each, hold them together, put all three together, and in 5 minutes construct a story around these three cards. So this is an attempt to try to get us all thinking in creative ways about building stories, building narratives, but using the research to underpin it. Then we have to go into the studio and record our game. This is, that's Bill Wallace on the right-hand side there, the late lamented Bill Wallace, a wonderful actor. Do you remember the German spy in Blackadder? That was Bill. He's died now, sadly. Anyway, so we had these people in to voice our characters, and then we were ready to go. We produced, there's a sort of a leaflet thing, which everybody gets. It's got instructions on it. On the one side, that's the outside of the leaflet. I've got some of these, so I can let you have them afterwards. And on the inside, you get a map, our map. Now, our map fusing the old and the new. And anything red is a live zone. So anything red, you can go into and you'll pick up the GPS. So those are your kind of, your spots you're heading for. I say red, you can't see what's red, can you really? Maybe you can on these ones, yeah. Okay, so everybody gets one of those. And I was very keen on this bit. When they finished playing the game, and I hope learning something by subterfuge about 18th century pleasure gardens, this is like education smuggling it in. You know, you're not going to be standing there and learning things. We're not going to give you a quiz to see how many points you can score at the end. We're not going to give you badges. We're just going to all play together, and we are going to learn about 18th century pleasure gardens. We're going to hear them. We're going to learn about situations in them. We're going to find spots where things once stood. I'll get a sense of the space. And we will hear the music that was once played here. And that will all be happening without anyone telling you to listen and pay attention. So it's not information, but I'm keen that people learn something. So I was hoping, and when people finish, they come back out and they go, well, that was amazing. Yeah, that bloke who was picking pockets, right, up by the swings, is that real? Or did you make that up? And we go, oh, well, here, have one of these. Character booklets. So everyone gets a character booklet when they leave. And it gives them a very simple, easily digested lowdown on each character that they've met in the gardens. They are all real. And this tells you a little bit about them. They've never heard of these people before. Of course, they're not famous. Jane Austen, not in it. And then at the end, importantly, of each biography, How do we know what we know? How did the historian find out about this person? Because that's a clue to gearing people, empowering people to go and be historians themselves. These are the sources. You can do this. Look them up. Go to your local park. Find people who once lived there and did stuff there. This is how you do it. It's not difficult. That's beyond the digital, of course. That's just about education, isn't it? And then we're ready to play. And this was the most important thing about the project. The most important thing about the project was that we weren't going to be walking around with these or those, and we don't want information boards, but we do want digital and we do want sound. So how are we going to do it? Well, we have to build something in which to hide the technology. Don't want people thinking about technology. We want them to believe they're in an 18th century pleasure garden. It got a bit difficult with one of these. They didn't have them. So we built beautiful boxes. I'll show you one in a bit. And these boxes have to be handed out to visitors. The boxes are the things that produce the sound. They're time radios. So we had to train up the Holborn Museum's volunteer staff not to say, hello, welcome to the Holborn Museum. We've got a digital application here you might be interested in borrowing. It tells you all about the history of the gardens. Shall I take this walk? No, you don't do that. You don't do that. You go up to people and you say, hello, this is a time radio. We discovered them in the basement of the Holborn Museum when we were moving a lot of things around about 3 years ago, and we think they were invented by Jean-Joseph Merlin. Have you heard of him? No, they haven't, of course. So you didn't tell them about Jean-Joseph Merlin, who was an inventor in the 18th century and made beautiful instruments and incredible things. And the idea was to tell people, to draw them into this idea that they are being given an 18th century time radio, and suspend your disbelief and go outside and see if you can make it work. Because we're interested, it's an experiment, can we make it work? So off they go with their, very simple, just go, now remember, if you want to go back, you press the button 3, but if you want to see the whole thing, for the map, you want button 5, but don't press that button, none of that, just the instructions are, put it around your neck, turn it on, and walk into the gardens, and listen to what it tells you. You'll be playing a game, and it will tell you what to do. So anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. There's no challenge, and in fact, the wonderful thing is everybody wants to do it. This bloke really wanted to do it because this is the nutter in the pack. I said to him, I gave him his box, and I said to him, this is a time radio. He goes, time travel? I said, yes. He goes, oh, good. I'm very interested in time travel. Now, not all people know this. I thought, oh, no. Anyway, he had a great time. And I don't think he believed ours was real, actually. All ages, there you are, that's a lovely picture, isn't it? All ages had a good time with the time radio. The whole point about this thing was to build a prototype, to build a project which people might want to buy into. It's a process. I'm trying to say it's a way of working as much as a product. It's not just about, I want one of those time radios. No, what you want is to employ us to work in a particular kind of way. And we will make something you have not ever seen before and you have not got. So you will be smart because you've got something different. That was the idea, And so we've been pitching this for some time. The National Trust finally bit and said, we've got Bodiam Castle. And we went, yes! You want us in? They said, yeah, Bodiam Castle's brilliant, right? The thing is, we get thousands of visitors, and they all say they won't come again. And they all say they were disappointed. Why? Because it looks great when you get out the car and run in. When you get in there, it's just this bloody ruin, and there's nothing there. So can you make something that excites people and engages them and gets them interested? So we said, yeah. Not sure how. Well, we ended up building something very much like Ghosts in the Garden, as it turned out. This is called A Knight's Tale. It's the same thing, all right? But, of course, I know what you're going to say. But in the medieval period, they didn't have time radios. And you're right. They had echo horns. Actually, also, in the medieval period, they didn't have GPS, and we knew that, so we worked with RFID, radio frequency ID, on this. So, because there is no GPS in Bodiam Castle. But with RFID, of course, you can just put one little transmitter against a receiver. So you take your echo horn and you put it up against a particular part of the castle, and it speaks to you through the horn. And you've got a little volume knob in the horn, and it transmits. So that all works. I won't play the sound file because there isn't time. But can we just show the film? Yeah. what Ghosts in the Garden has been about is about place, actually. It's about a distinct place, a particular place. Of course it's about history, and of course it's about pleasure gardens, but it's also about a park that people in this area walk in all the time without necessarily thinking about who's walked here before. So to uncover some real history, to think about the discipline of how we discover the real histories, how we put people from the past back into the land on which we walk, I think that's just such a valuable, that's so much better than making it up.
What we're hoping is that as they have this kind of physical connection to the past and they walk around and they're listening into stuff, it's going to paint the picture of what was going on here. And it was a busy, bustling place. There were all kinds of things happening. So we kind of want people to sort of go away with that experience.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello. Do stay in one place. One moment. I shall do it. Excellent. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is John Joseph Merlin, inventor, maker of musical instruments and creator of amazing mechanisms.
The experience is powered by a game mechanic in the form of a choose-your-own-adventure scenario. So you start at the first scene and you're given a couple of choices and you need to decide what you're going to do. And there's some kind of jeopardy there or some kind of decision about who you're going to trust.
You should either head over to the wonderful Cosmorama with Mr. Bridle or walk up the hill to the swings to see if anyone's lurking.
The really unique thing about what we've done here is to allow a sort of a fictive representation of a pleasure ground to dominate the project, but a fictive representation that's thoroughly informed by real historical research. When I look at projects of a similar kind elsewhere in the country, it always seems to me that's not what we've got. And neither has this been a sort of a digital guidebook, which we didn't want to do that either. We wanted it to be much more involving and exciting.
So they get given one of these, which is the special listening device, and people go out and take the objects with them and listen into what's happening in different places.
I mean, these are the only surviving pleasure gardens, but nothing from the pleasure gardens survives. I mean, the labyrinth's gone, all the excitements are not there, and I think and hope what this sort of experience gives a sense of is quite what used to happen here, the life there used to be of lights and fireworks and illuminations and labyrinths and swings and all the rest of it. And so I hope they get a sense of the sort of layers of history through where we are.
My delivery method is either through lecture, seminar, presentation, or through book or learned article. So I can talk to public audiences that way, but it's very kind of one way. But this, of course, is an entirely different thing. We're allowing the public, more or less, to kind of find their own way through the research. So these are just new ways of working for me. These are new kinds of outcome, and I've had to listen to people from other disciplines about what will work and what won't work, and I'm just not used to this. But I think I've done quite well, really.
I think that we've done it. I think people are coming back and they're talking about how they feel about the space, and they're using language about imagining what it was like, and they're saying, you know, it's evocative, that the soundscape made them imagine what it was like when it was a pleasure garden, and that was exactly what we were trying to achieve.
Oh, you still here? You get along and follow Mr. Bridle to the Cosmorama or find out if there are any beggars by the swings. Hurry!